All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for Future Forward Advisory, or integrating advisory services into your firm or your, it's also called, as we see on the screen, your top 3 advisory practice accelerators. My name is Gary Dehart. I'm the publisher of Insightful Accountant, host of Future Forward, and moderator of today's session, or really the guy behind the scenes. Sean Duncan is our speaker. He's going to give his own bio in a minute. So I'm going to dive into saying thank you to our sponsor, Canopy. More than just a cloud-based practice management suite for accountants, Canopy offers client, document workflow, time, billing, email, and staff management, all in one seamless cloud-based platform. Unclunk, you may have to check Webster's or Google, unclunk your accounting practice today at getcanopy.com. I do have a couple of housekeeping items. One, this is a CPE eligible session, and like all CPE eligible sessions, you must be here for 50 minutes, 50 minutes. You must participate by answering the poll questions, and we will send you the certificate within 48 hours, maybe 72, but I'll try to get it out in 24. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat or the questions panel. We will be monitoring that, and we'll throw them out for Sean. And the link to the recording will be sent to you, and it can be found on our YouTube channel as well. And I'll put that link in the chat once I go off screen. So there it is, Sean, it is all yours. Thank you for being here. We certainly appreciate you carving out some time.
No, I appreciate Canopy sponsoring. By the way, they have a really cool transcript pulling service on their software as well, but not to just market for them, but yeah, I got to add that one in as well. Well, guys, I want to first say thank you so much for everybody attending. I'll tell a little bit about my story because that relates to why we're having this conversation. So my name is Sean Duncan. I am the founder of SMD Consulting and Accounting. Also have a program called the Chief Proactive Advisor Program. And this largely drives from way too many people want to add advisory to their firm, but they don't know how, they don't know where. And so my journey, really long story, you're going to get the fast version. Back in 2017, we were the largest firm in town. Now, when I say the largest firm in town, I am in Frisco, Texas. If you don't know anything about Frisco, Texas is where the Dallas Cowboys move their headquarters, where the PGA is moving their headquarters. We have one stretch of highway that's called the $5 billion mile, because that's how much real estate investment is going to be there. And that's going to create around 40 to 45,000 jobs. So the town is growing. It's rambunctious. It's the top 20 city in the United States to live in, over and over and over again. So to be the biggest in town was never my dream. My goal was to help as many people as we possibly could. And in 2017, we looked up and we were successful. Please note the air quotes. We were successful. We were killing it. Man, I was tearing out walls. I was hiring people. We were punching out tax returns. It was awesome on paper. The name of the firm is SMD Consulting and Accounting. We always led with, we were the ones that would give you advice. We would give you insight. Now, all of you professionals know, you know a lot about a lot. And that information is what the client really, really values. They want you to share with them tax strategies, best practices. How do I set up my books? How do I do all that stuff that you know? They want that information. So we always leaned into, we want to teach and advise. So fast forward to success. Well, we, just like every other tax firm, disappeared. Every year, January 15th to April 15th. And I think I heard Dawn say that in her previous session. It's like, don't bother me. I'm in tax season. Well, we were trying to help people, but we couldn't. I built a consulting department. It didn't matter. When the tax people were on fire, the consulting crew came over and helped, as a team should do. So we were disappearing from our clients. And you know the lifestyle, y'all. How many hours do you work during tax season? How really fulfilled and happy are you? When your family is off at Six Flags, because that's a true example for me, you're sitting at the office doing the work. Something's wrong with that. So I wasn't having life-work balance. I was grinding out a ton of work. The margins were okay, and they were wildly profitable, but my hourly rate kept having scope creep. My clients weren't getting the service they want. So I made this really crazy decision. 2017, I fired all the tax returns. Stop doing them. Focus solely on how can I give advice. Now, you probably know there's no methodology or program out there. There's no one place you can go and say, how do I do that? So I had to create it. So honestly, I started earlier than 2017, but really for the last 7 to 8 years, built a program a pricing model, a client base that is focused on how we give advice and support a client in that way. And that's really, really important, is because I screwed up a lot. But in that time, I learned a ton of things, techniques, tricks, processes by which I then use that to build and enhance my firm. And I actually teach that. I've had lots of one-on-one sessions with CPAs and EAs and bookkeepers on how do we add and roll in advisory. So that's kind of the premise of this. That's a little bit of my background. So we'll start rolling through the slides a little bit. The common question is, it comes up, we'll hit the next one because you've already seen me. Why would you even do this, right? You've got a successful tax practice. You got a successful accounting services practice. Why do I even need to do this? There's a lot of reasons, and I'm going to jump to the middle one that says defense against revenue loss to AI. They were talking about technology in the previous section, and I know that the BotKeeper said, "Oh, we're not here to replace you," and they're really not, but it's going to happen anyways. If they automate the processes that you are charging for, the rates are going to come down, and your work is going to get replaced. And so, unless you're planning for that, what's going to happen? There's a lot of studies I've read that sometime in the next 3 to 5 years, as much as 50% of the revenue of public accounting firms is going to disappear or be pushed down to such a price point that it's not what we see today. So how do you plan for that? Now, not to focus on the negative, really think about this though. Who's going to be around? The people that are helping their clients. You're going to create value. You can't replace your brain. You can't replace your insights. You can't replace your personality. You can't replace that moment of time with your client. So why do this advisory? Well, one, yeah, let's not lose money, but you also help your clients more. And I'm going to tell you from plenty of testimonials from myself and people I've helped, you're going to make more money. You're going to feel better about it. And guess what? I don't work on the weekends grinding tax returns anymore at all. So it really helps with your life work balance. You're going to grow and you're going to have better relationships with clients. Now, we all have different motivations for why we do this, but Don Brolin said, we're kind of all people pleasers, and we really are. We want to help. Think about how much more you can help if you're helping with the ideas, the plans, the strategies, and things that build wealth and save them money. And so we'll jump into the poll question. Why do you think you want to add advisory services to your firm? And maybe you don't, but what would be most pressing for you guys? And we'll stall a little bit. I'm not going to sing, there's no Jeopardy music while this happens, but I'd be really curious to see what you guys are seeing. And Gary, you just tell me how long we hang out.
Let's give it about 5 or 7 more seconds, and then
Okay.
We'll wrap it up. And again, remember, just from a CPE perspective, if you need the CPEs, you need to participate.
And guys, I talk fast. We're going to haul through this. So get ready buckle in, because it's going to go fast. And I did have a 5-hour energy, so it's going to even be more amped than normal. All righty. Excellent. More value and differentiate. Those take the leading roles. And differentiation, by the way, that is huge. The number of leads I get that walk in and go, my person doesn't give me advice. I just need help. There's only so much of me around and my firm around. We can't service everybody that we're getting phone calls for. I don't market, and I get 5 to 15 prospect meetings a week. And we aren't cheap, but differentiation, very, very important one. All right, so moving on, where the heck do we begin? Before we get into the methodology, this right here is a little bit of my secret sauce. Work on the business days. So my staff knows, typically once every other month, I'd like to do it monthly, minimum quarterly. I disappear and have a meeting with myself. I hide at a coffee shop. I have notepads and iPads and everything but I don't take calls or emails. This is your moment to be the owner, to deal with those things you keep saying, yeah, I'm going to get to that. I got to look at that software. I really need to look at my price points. I really need to investigate that new service. I got to figure out how I'm going to, whatever you're going to. That peace and quiet of you just being with you is so powerful. I cannot begin to overstate it. I've had it referred to as working meditation. Even if you don't have an agenda for your meeting with yourself, because you were just so busy, walk in, sit back and go, what worked well, what didn't work well. What did that Sean guy say the steps were for this adding advisory thing? Whatever's important to you, but give yourself the space to be an owner of your company, not just an employee with a boss that always knows when you're screwing around. Now, if you're not an owner of a company, you're an employee, you can do this exact same thing for you in your career. So don't think that this is only to owners. I'm going to speak to the ownership mindset, but it is really anyone can benefit. So make the time, please make the time. If you got sick for a day, you'd find a way to make the work for the remaining days. This is a high value time. So at its highest level, we're going to jump into the 3 accelerators. Now, these are going to seem simple in concept because honestly, things can be simple. 1, we're going to talk about matching your passions with your strengths. 2, we're going to identify who you're going to help. And 3, we're going to start talking about the business plan. Now, be warned, this is a 30,000-foot flyby. We're going to truck through this information. This is actually part of the Chief Proactive Advisor program, that this is a 6-hour masterclass where we dive into the details. So if I'm going through this and you're feeling like, man, there's got to be more, there's details, there's questions to ask. Oh, there are. I mean, I can talk a lot on these items. Now, keep in mind at the end, and I can tell you now, if you wanted to get the workbook that helps with a lot of the methodologies, you can text CPA2, which means CPA squared, Chief Proactive Advisor. So you're a CPA, you're Accenture, yeah, get it. CPA2 to the number 33777. You can get the free workbook that goes with this. We're not going to go into all the details of the workbook, but it starts to set up a little bit of the head start on the framework of the full program that goes from there. Also, this starts conceptual. When you're sitting there, just tell me how to do the advice. It doesn't work that simple. If I taught you how to block a defensive lineman because you need your hands in, you got to get your base set and set yourself square, and you're playing baseball, well, I just taught you a technique, but it didn't apply to the game you're playing. If you don't think about what you're trying to do, who you are as a person, what you're trying to accomplish in life, and understand the game you're playing, you might be learning the wrong techniques. And it may seem like this conceptual stuff is big foo-foo things. I promise you, it's critical to how this stuff works out. So we're going to hit 30,000-foot view, and there's opportunities to drill in as we go. And I'm going to try to go quickly to leave some space at the end for some Q&A. So hopefully, fingers crossed, everybody. But we're going to rock and roll. So speaking of accelerating, let's accelerate into the next thing. Guys, you're going to start making a lot of lists. Get the Excel spreadsheets out, get the notepads out, whatever your methodology is for taking lists. You're going to be accumulating a lot of information about you, your clients, your business, your goals. Lists are going to be the key because that's your analytical tool in making this whole thing work. So accelerator number 1, let's jump into it. We're going to match your passion with your strengths. That's the big picture, right? So Gary, if we can hit the next one, 1A is going to be discover your passion. Okay, I know that sounds cheesy. Hold on. What are you passionate about in life? We're not talking about work. What I want you to start to do is write everything that you love. When do you lose track of time? You know, oh my gosh, I could talk about travel. I can talk about Disney World. You know, I really like working out. Man, I love Excel. I don't care what it is. Just go with me on this. Write down everything that you are passionate about. Your kids, puppies, it doesn't matter. Your passion starts to drive this whole methodology. And again, there's a whole reason for all of this. Start with that. When do you lose track of time? Those are the things I want you to make a list of. So just make one massive list of everything that you are passionate about. So 1B is after you've done that list, and it sounds simple, but you're going to find when you're sitting down making this list, it takes some time to do this. We're going to go to the next slide, and we're going to talk about identifying your strengths and weaknesses. Now, this is a little more technical, but I want you to consider your technical skills and soft skills, because you might go, I'm really good at algebra. I really like to do Excel spreadsheets. I'm really good at filling in partnership returns. Those are awesome. There's nothing wrong with those. But I want you to start thinking about what makes you you. What are you great at? And honestly, be honest. What are you terrible at? Man, I have a brain lock with payroll. I'm a CPA, guys. I shouldn't have a brain lock with payroll, but every so often I get in there and I'm just like, ugh, what's this journal entry going to be? It's okay, because I really believe strongly that we should be playing to your strengths, not your weaknesses. Because I promise you, there are other people that are amazing at what your weaknesses are. And guess what? That's who you hire. That's who you subcontract with. But we want you driving toward your strengths. Now, when I've run across, when people start talking about their strengths, and this will come later in a part of the session, we're getting into the business plan too, you put this filter on. Well, I mean, it feels like bragging. No, be honest, guys. What are you really good at? What do you people compliment you on? Even when we don't want to accept a compliment, we deflect, listen for that, because that is actually telling you what you're really, really good at. And that's what's important, is begin to create that list. Now, we haven't had anything about business specific yet, right? We're just talking about concepts of you, the business owner, because when you're choosing where your advisory model is going to go, this is about you. This is about what you want to accomplish in life. Your clients play a role in that, but whether you want to scream YOLO, you only live once, this is important. We're trying to get you fulfilled and you successful and focusing on the things that bring the most value and passion for you, but also profit comes with that as well. So when we bounce into the next slide, this is the first part where we're going to go into you begin matching it up. Now, you see where I say no decisions are being made yet. Now, what I do a lot of times, I'll put my passion. And then I look over at that strength weaknesses list and say, are there any just organic synergies with these things? Well, I really, really love travel. I am an aggressive traveler. And well, how do my strengths pair up with that? Well, you know what? I'm the one that plans everything. Really good at research. I'm really good at analyzing things. I'm really good at structuring. I'm really good at project managing and flow, which is planning a month-long vacation. And yes, I take month-long vacations. Let me repeat that. I take month-long vacations because in 2017, I stopped the tax nonsense. And even if you do tax, you can still do it if you're appropriately balancing everything out. So these strengths actually feed that, and that's kind of cool. So if you start just seeing natural synergies, what I've done is a methodology. I write a list of my passions, and I just sort of offshoot little lines. Yeah, this is a strength that supports that. No decisions. This is just data accumulation. And as it says in the pro tip, this is about you, not your clients. This is about you figuring out what you love and what strengths and weaknesses hamper or embolden those passions. So now that we've done this huge vision planning, I know you're thinking vision board, I'm going to stick pictures on a board. That's not what we're doing. We're trying to understand what drives you, because that should be what drives the business. So as we move into accelerator number 2, now that you've got a whole bunch about you, now we're going to focus on how we get about them. Who are you going to help? Who do you want to help? That's probably even more important, right? Who is that perfect client? You may choose to look at your existing client base and go, man, I really love Frank. Frank's awesome. Frank's nice. He's courteous. He gets me his information on time. He makes $1 bajillion. He pays his bills. Whatever you feel is a profile. Don't worry about, oh, well, this client doesn't fit that model. I don't care today. What we're doing is we're painting the picture of the ideal client, because what we're going to start doing is making that your target client. This is who you're going to pursue. And who you're going to pursue does not necessarily equal who you have. And this will come up into the business plan concept that's really, really vital concept. I created 2 perfect client profiles. Now, I take on other types of clients. Don't get me wrong, you're going to help other people. But this segment is, if I could work with these types of people more and more often, I'm going to be more fulfilled. And these types of clients are going to tie to my passion. They're going to tie to my strengths. Oh my gosh. But if I have a weakness that really would support this client, well, maybe that's something I train on. We're not matching that first section up with this section yet, but we are focusing on who is it, and start writing down details about them. Where are they located? How old are they? How much money do they make? Are they charitable? Are they mean? Yeah, we actually have a no jerk policy in our office. I don't care how much money you make, you don't get to work with us if you're a jerk. We actually don't say jerk, but I'm going to keep this sort of G-rated as we keep going. But you get to choose who your clients are. And this is that first process. Let's really define who the heck these people are. So then after we've accelerated to that, we're going to move to the next slide. That is, we're going to begin understanding what that client values. Because what's really interesting is sometimes we project what we think they're supposed to care about. because we know that you should have a documented accountable plan. Why don't they do it? Well, client doesn't care. They don't want the paperwork. They don't understand the value of the bookkeeping. They don't understand, and granted, it is our responsibility to teach them the importance of these things, but you've got to understand what is important to them. So you've created this profile of who your client is. Let's say it's physicians. What impacts those physicians? Well, I will tell you, as somebody who consults a lot of physicians, there's subsets within the physician group. An orthopedic surgeon has different wants and needs than a pediatrician. They have different income levels. They have different lifestyles. So you start understanding their pains. I will tell you, the pediatrician is tired of Karen and snotty noses and vaccines, and they're tired, man. Can you imagine being a pediatrician or even just a general practitioner during COVID and the wave of work and the nonstop work? Y'all just went through 2 years of nonstop tax season, and it was miserable. It was miserable for a lot of other professions too. But see, the orthopedic, they couldn't do their elective surgeries. People need knees and hips and elbows replaced and fixed, but they couldn't because those were elective and non-essential. And so they had a different pain point and value and need. If you get to understand these subsets and what they value, you know what's going to start happening? You're going to start figuring out what to charge them for, which is where the pro tip is. Everything they're telling you is potentially an eventual service that you're going to offer. And I want you to think this from the accountant mindset. That's going to make you money, right? I mean, we're here to help, but also we give a lot of stuff away for free. Stop doing that. You have insights, you have valuable information. You help that person save $100,000 in taxes this year, and it only took me 15 minutes. Should you have charged 15 minutes of 1 hour of hourly rate for that? Probably not. So let's figure out how we can do that. So you start understanding any clients you already have are the perfect field research, right? What's important to them? It could just take them to coffee or take them to lunch. You're getting the understanding of what's important to them, and you will start to see patterns. Remember, I mentioned all the lists? As you start talking to doctors or real estate investors or manufacturing or car guys, whatever is that perfect client base, understand what's important to them and not important to them. Create dossiers. That's going to be a part of your client profile. And they will tell you uniquely, it's really important to me that I retire in 3 years. Write that down. That's extremely important for you giving them advice and insight. And so once you've gotten a little bit of who you want to be, now you've gotten to who you want to help. You then have how are you going to potentially help them? That will then bring you into this next part of accelerator number 2, which would be the next slide. Guess what? You can quantify a lot of this stuff. You can estimate, what's it worth to that physician if you help save them 6 hours of their week for taking over their books because, they thought they could just do it themselves because, they are a brain surgeon. And so therefore they can figure out bookkeeping. And I absolutely have had a brain surgeon tell me, he's like, I could learn all that you do. And we've all had that moment, right? I mean, I know you've had that moment with a client where they've gone like, how hard could that be? Don't be insulted. Just take a moment and say, I know, and this is what I said to my brain surgeon, I know I could be an amazing brain surgeon. He's like, what? I said, if I had gone to medical school and spent 20 years in the profession, gosh, I would be a good brain surgeon. He goes, but you didn't. He's like, I know, I'm a CPA and I've got 25 years in this profession. You're a brain surgeon. Of course you can learn this, but should you? And then you start quantifying all that time that he is or she is spending on this thing that you could save them. Start figuring out that value because that is going to start turning into the accounting services that you're going to begin offering. This is the advisory, guys. Is the action item is start sketching it out. If I did this for them, I could charge this and it's worth this to them. If I did, and you're going to begin creating lists on how you can charge for these services. You haven't even created a business model yet, but you're going to begin feeling how this all starts to flow together. Now, if it feels like, again, I'm going super fast, y'all, I'm going super fast here. There's a lot of devils in the details. So I apologize because, like I said, this is a 6-session masterclass I'm jamming together. But you get the feel and the vibe for how this is we got to start with what you're trying to accomplish and who you're trying to help. But then this will start to flow. And again, you're spending an 8-hour work on the business day every month, every other month, every quarter to continue building and chipping away at this. With these steps, these are things that I've done. You don't have to wait 7 years to figure it out like I did, because I screwed up a lot. Boil this down. Let's streamline this a little bit. So after we get to the who, now we're going to get into accelerator number 3. This is creating your business plan. This is where the rubber meets the road. First, before anything else happens, what I need you to do is consider, what is your success? Now, whether it's Simon Sinek saying, what is your why? When you visualize, okay, 110 years from now, I'm finally retired, because I'm going to be part robot, so I'm going to keep it going. But when are you retiring is kind of important. But when you are at the end game of the business or the profession, and you look back on the horizon of what you've accomplished, how do you know you were successful? How do you know that it mattered? How do you know that you brought the value to your clients that you wanted? You brought the value to you and your family that you wanted. What does that look like? Do you have 10 homes across the world? Are you on a beach? Are you hanging out with just you and your spouse and it's really a nice small place? Big and small don't matter. Now, I mentioned earlier that I was going to come to this point. I'm going to mention about being honest with yourself. This is why there's 2 pro tips here. Do not judge yourself when you set your expectations. I tell this to clients all the time. I coach them a lot on their business plans. There's a lot of mechanics to business planning. This, by the way, business plan creation is 3 sessions in its own right in many, many ways. But I want you to start with considering, if you want 7 Ferraris and you want to name them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, it's okay, y'all. There's nothing hurting anybody if you want 7 Ferraris. Oh, that's greedy, that's selfish. Knock that talk off. That self-talk stuff shuts you down from your fulfillment and success. And by the way, these same things I'm telling you, think about how you could tell your clients this stuff. This is advisory, by the way, just telling you. Sharing ideas and insights and wisdoms is also something you charge for. But think about what success is and put those lists down. Do not judge yourself if you want a large house. Do not judge yourself if you want $1 million. Now, the flip side of that is, don't create expectations for yourself that you really don't want. If you do not want to volunteer cleaning up, dirty cages at the animal shelter every single day for 6 hours a day, which would be noble of you. I mean, my gosh, if you want to do that, holy cow, how awesome are you? But if you don't want to do it, but you're hearing yourself saying, well, I'm supposed to, if I'm successful, I'm supposed to do that. Take that out of your mental conversation. Focus on what is you. This isn't saying be selfish, but this is your life. You get to choose this stuff. So this is where a business plan truly starts. I have this conversation with my clients. Sometimes it's, what is your exit plan, right? That's easy. That's mechanical. It's numbers. But what your success is extremely vital to figuring out where this business model is going to go. And you can see the action item, create an actual bucket list. I can turn to my drawer right now and pull out a book that's got my bucket list in it. It is what I measure. And hey, by the way, remember all that passion and strength stuff we talked about at the beginning? This is where this stuff starts to emerge. Again, we're going super fast to get into this, but starting with your goals. And when you start creating what my world is going to look like, the next question you're going to ask yourself is, well, why I can't do that today because I don't have this. That's fine. That's part of the stepping stones of building a business plan. But we're going to go into the next part of the accelerator on the next slide, matching this all up. You've now identified this massive list of passions. You created this massive list of why you're freaking awesome at what you do. And this list on those things like, I'm not so good at that. Stop doing that work. You've just created who your ideal clients are. If you're like me, and most accountants, well, most people aren't as caffeinated as I am. You guys are analytical fools. You're amazing at analysis and seeing patterns and figuring out stuff out. I mean, a lot of us get into this profession because we like the puzzle, right? You're going to lay this stuff out and you're going to start to see almost like, Good Will Hunting. Things are going to start floating off the page and you're going to go, oh my gosh, I love this type of client. I love this type of stuff. I'm really good at this. This is the type of client I want to work with. Holy cow, I could package that. Boom, you got a service. So look at this and start figuring out where these things align. You may be highlighting your brains out and arrows everywhere. It takes time to sit and do this. And again, this is highly conceptual, but you can feel where the tactical stuff starts to move in to go with the strategic. As you start pairing these things up, you're going to begin making lists of offerings and ways you can do it. Now, if you don't know how to charge for it, that's okay. If you don't know exactly how you're going to market it, that's okay. That comes from the rest of this business plan part. And so then we're going to hit to the next slide, and this will be a little bit of a regurg. Now I'm going to get into some details, but how are you going to make this happen? Okay, Sean, I got an idea what my success is. I know who I'm going to help. I know what I love to do. Where in the world do I start? Because I am not as nuts as you, and I'm not going to fire 1,500 tax returns just to go give it a shot. And yeah, that's really what I did. Within 30 days, I had sent letters out, and I'm not doing those things anymore. That's nuts. I get it. But how are you going to make it happen? So the first thing is you look at, well, this is what my success is. I can't do that today because, well, I don't have enough clients. Okay, why don't you have enough clients? Well, I don't do any marketing. Okay, you're not looking at timelines, you're looking at milestones. You're looking at the steps that are needed. Focus on what you need to do, and you're going to project manage this backwards. It is a lot of thinking. This will feel overwhelming. I understand that. But how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You start somewhere. Get to making decisions about this. Now, one of the bigger decisions you're going to make, and this is a big deal, how fast are you going to try to do this? Are you going to be nuts like me and just say, blip, I'm out, I'm starting all over again? And I probably don't recommend that, because in your 40s, that in restart, slapping the reset button ain't exactly what everybody wants to do. But understand, do I just want to add a little bit of service? And for perspective, back in 2017, about 15% of my revenue was advisory services. And I was doing a ton of tax and doing books as well. Now about 60% of my revenue is advisory services. And the only reason it's not more, dang, accounting services department keeps growing too, because we need good books to do the analysis. But as you get into it, you'll find that it's going to grow and emerge the way you want it to grow and emerge. If you're like, no, I don't need all this craziness. I just want to start advising people on how to better fill out their tax returns or missing tax deductions. I just want to teach them how to use apps. I want to teach them how to be better at whatever you had a passion for the people you want to serve. Start figuring out what it is that you can help them with, how much that's worth to them, and then how you're going to begin rolling it out. Now, this pro tip, and this was taught to me years ago, most of the clients you have today will probably not be clients in your new future. So think about this for a second. If you're going to be an advisor and you're going to charge $700 an hour, and yes, you can, $700 an hour to give them insights and advice on how to exit out of their business inside of 5 years and make sure their books are in order so that they're ready for the mergers and acquisition deal. The people you're helping today didn't sign up for that service. That's your future. So there's a transition plan, and it is hard when you love Joe and Steve and Susan and Bob, and man, I've helped them for 10 years and I've always done their tax return for 150 bucks. Listen to that for a second. You can still love them by referring them to someone else that can do them for 150 bucks. You're going to help them with on their life planning, their goals, their efficiencies, whatever it is that you want to help them with. It stinks to lose clients for any reason, even when you're the one choosing it. But understand, it is completely okay to make that transition. And so when that was told to me years and years and years ago, I remembered that I'm on a path for my success too. We are not supposed to be martyrs for our clients. And I want that to resonate, because I know we all are. You're putting in the extra time. You're giving away that free time. You're feeling like they're not paying, they're not grateful. You're working 90 hours because of tax season, and they're still yelling at you about, why wasn't it done on April 14th or 15th? Because you dropped it off on April 10th and you sent it to me as JPEG scans. It was a real beatdown, right? We've all had these moments where you are being amazing, and yet are you being paid what you should be paid? And then do you feel like you're really bringing the value? Like, bring that value hammer, man. Do it. Get to it. So what I want you to start thinking about is how you're going to make it happen. Who is it you're wanting to serve? and then how fast you're going to make this stuff happen. And this is where a lot of coaching comes in with this. Again, if it feels like, oh my gosh, this seems overwhelming, yes, that is totally normal. So as you create that business plan, Mark Twain said it best, the secret of getting ahead is just getting started. You got to do something. So do something based on what you want to accomplish. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. If you go start doing some work for somebody and go, you know what? This is not as fun as I thought it was. Stop doing it. Try something else. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? How many of you have lost a client before? Did you find new clients? Yeah. You're not out there screwing things up. You're out there trying to bring more value, and nobody can fault you for that. And that's the thing. It is scary to make any change. This is the way we've always done it for decades, right? Our profession is mired in tradition. Sally, same as last year. Just because that's what was done doesn't mean it's what should be done. So we're going to jump on into the next poll question. And yes, I did say I talked fast, guys. So I hope that you're tracking. This is going pretty quick. So first, hey, do you even offer advisory services now? Now, one thing that's interesting about advisory services, a lot of classes that are being taught out there are talking about how you're going to go in and give the ratios and analytics and KPIs, and that's what advisory services is. It could be. It doesn't have to be. And that's something that was really off-putting to some folks I was coaching last year on this changeover, is that they were like, well, I don't want to run a bunch of numbers all the time and just sit down and go, well, your current ratio is off by this much. Let's change your cash balance. They didn't feel fulfilling, which is why I start with passion. If that jazzes you, by all means, every single quarter, meet with them to talk about those numbers. But just understand that the industry is pushing the analytics side, and that's valuable, but may not drive you. Okay, so do you offer it? Yes, but we want to do more. We're just starting, not sure how to do it. Okay, I appreciate the honesty, guys. This is a good spectrum, because there are so many paths that we all can take to get to this point. So I'm thrilled that some of you have gotten started. Now, a lot of people, to that third point, I don't even know where to start. So I've been asked, what the heck, we can say heck, or HE double hockey stick, whichever one, is advisory. Hey, here's an example. How many of you guys have said, and here I want you to listen to this. So I know you might have already tuned me out and been munching on a sandwich, but hang on. Oh, that's real easy. I'll knock that out for you. Particularly as it relates to an S Corp, because what? I just got to fill out a 2553 and we're done. It takes me 5-10 minutes. More important than anything in that statement, and any statement similar, is you immediately devalued what you just did. You were helping them with stuff that they didn't even know existed, and you know you're going to save them thousands of dollars. And honestly, it is a whole lot more than just filling out a 2553, right? We got to fill out 2553. We got to make sure your books are in order. By the way, if you don't have books, we need them because we really need a balance sheet. So we might need to get that set up. We got to make sure that you have reasonable compensation. Oh, shoot, you don't even know what reasonable compensation is. You don't have ADP. Well, we got to get you on ADP so payroll can get rolling. You got to do stuff. You got to quarterback this process. That stuff takes time. So in this specific project scenario, if you know you pop the S Corp election on their little business and you're going to save them $10,000 a year at SE tax, and we know this happens all the time, $10,000 per year. So if they stay in business for 10 years, I'm pretty sure I've got enough fingers to give me that number, 100K, y'all. Do you think that if you were to tell them, look, every year, if you never grow, it's going to be 10K, but it's going to cost, it's going to take me a little while to get all that together. And if the IRS sends you any letters, I'll take care of that, because you know what? You were going to take care of it anyways and probably not charge $2,500. Who doesn't want $2,500 to do an S corporation? And if you know you're saving them $10,000, there's nothing wrong with value pricing. You do not have to charge by the hour. Your brain is the value. You've got this idea that saves them this. And how many times have you looked at somebody's tax stuff that you're like, why aren't you an S corp? My gosh, I had a guy that made $1 million taxable a year as a non-entity sole proprietorship. $1 million. He's had a CPA for 8 years. That is shameful. Gosh, man, I got to get this paperwork done. We got to get this set up. It's going to cost you $5K. What's the math on that? So we're going to go to the next slide. You can see the other project because I want to touch on this next one. Hey, what about the bookkeeping side of the world? Well, maybe what you do is you set up an accountable plan. Well, all an accountable plan is an expense report. They don't know that. They don't understand it. Create a template. Here is an expense report template. We're going to set that up for you. We're going to make sure you get that sent in every month. We're going to help you write the policy. That's why it goes to $10,000. Everything must be submitted within 30 days. Once you create it for one client, you can repeat this thing over and over and over again. Something as what we would call simple as an accountable plan takes time to implement. When you do that for your client, you add value, but you also take that off their plate so they don't have to think about it. Your expertise on the stuff you take for granted is what is valuable to the client. Maybe you don't know, but boy, you sure know somebody that does. I can't tell you how many practitioners contact me to give them advice on a project. And so if I'm the invisible guy behind the scenes on how to do that mergers and acquisition deal and sell their business, they can take credit for it, but they look like the genius in that process. Or cost segregations. If you've been around real estate, pretty sure you don't have the engineers and architects on staff to do the cost seg. You sub that, but you've just partnered up with somebody. What about the ERC? Do you do that in-house or do you outsource it? R&D tax credits. These are advisory things that you can get paid for. And this is where I say the margin. Whatever's being charged, it's okay that you charge on top of that. We have ethical rules. We have to disclose, not saying you're doing anything untoward. But think about it. If I go tell a client, we do this, that's going to save you probably $75,000. Now I'm going to let you know the fee, it's going to be 20 and 5 of that's going to me. So just so you know, 20 is the fee. If you don't want to do it, it's cool. You're not going to hurt my feelings, but my recommendation is this thing. I'm going to get 5 out of that. They don't tell you no. I promise you, they don't tell you no. They're actually thankful that you're bringing this to their attention, and that being forward with it is extremely valuable. So the next slide we'll hit, and then I want to, like I said, I'm trying to leave time for questions as we get to it. So recurring work. Hey, why don't you, if they're the do-it-yourselfers, no, I can figure out how to do books. I've watched YouTube a lot. We've all seen those sets of books. Well, tell you what, I know you don't need me to do monthly books. That's totally fine. But maybe quarterly, I come in and I just do any adjustments to your QBO or your zero. What can you charge for that? I mean, every single time we charge anywhere between $600 and $1,000 a quarter just to fly in and say, yeah, that's messed up. Yeah, that's messed up. Hey, let me do that quick AJE, which makes your life easier at the end of the year anyways. Or maybe just quarterly, just look over the books for tax advice. You don't even have to do anything. You fly in, you act like a genius, because you know this stuff they don't know. Please don't devalue what you know. We take for granted because we talk among ourselves. Well, of course you do an S Corp. Of course you do an accountable plan. Of course you write off mileage. I have had people so grateful. Oh my gosh, I never even knew that I could write off the mileage. I didn't know I could write off my cell phone. And you want to look at them and go, really? You've been in business for 9 years. They don't. And this is where you get to be their advocate. You get to really, really help them out. So we'll bounce to the next slide. I believe it's a poll. Yeah. Okay. So we're at the poll question. Yeah, we'll hit the poll question. Oh, Gary's got.
Sorry, I am. I don't know, and I have not been drinking. Sorry, my driving's not very good. I do need to give you a heads up. We've got about 5 minutes.
Okay. So then so poll question, and then we'll hit to the CPA. Do you want to? Because I know they need that for their CPE.
Yep. So I'm going to go to the last poll, which is the sponsor poll.
Okay. Awesome.
And so just wanted to ask if you'd like to learn more about Canopy, just say yes, and we'll forward your information over.
Yeah, check it out, guys. It doesn't hurt, and they're really nice people too. Ask them for a deck of cards. They'll know what you mean. They have these really cool playing cards.
Oh, I don't have my Canopy playing cards. Maybe
you need to get Canopy playing cards. Famous accountants in the world.
Yeah. All right, we will wrap this up in a couple more seconds. Again, if you need CPE, you need to participate. And we'll wrap that up in 3, 2, and 1. Thank you.
Awesome. So again, guys, I know that I went fast. I know that was hauling through it. Like I said, it's 6-session masterclass jammed into 1 hour. We do have the workbook. So this is the text that a couple of you were asking about. CPA 2, think CPA squared. You are a CPA, but exponentially improving what your business could do. 33777. We'll send you the workbook, and it really is a workbook. It's a lot of, hey, here's some of the questions, and you're going to see how some of these questions that are in there dovetail into these talking points that I had. So with a little bit of time left, again, I know I talk fast. Gary, did you see any questions that you felt like we needed to tackle? Anybody have something like, holy cow, how does that made no sense, start all over again?
Nothing like that. The one that really stands out, it's pretty deep, and it's how you determine the value of your advisory services and what's it worth and what it's worth to the customer.
So that's where I work a little bit backwards. I start with what is it worth to the client? And you'd be surprised, you can quantify what is their equivalent hourly rate? What is their time? What is their pain? What is the medical bill from the heart attack that they just had? I mean, you get to know your clients, you get to understand what things are worth to them, and quantifying it's an estimate in a lot of cases. You can't always exactly get to it, but you try your best to get to that. And then you determine a little bit of an art, what they'll pay for it. And what I will tell you is every time you come up with a price, go higher than that, because you're going to devalue naturally what it is. We are 3 times more expensive per month on our monthly service for consulting, because we have a monthly consult, we have a recurring consulting program that charges monthly. We're 3x what we were in 2017. So if you really think about what that might mean for you, is it easier to keep raising prices or just get it right from the outset? And if you've got a burgeoning practice anyways, you don't, air quotes, need those new clients. So yeah, that project's $2,500 and you go, are they going to pay it? If everyone says no, all right, let me try 2,000 on the next one. Be willing to experiment with the marketplace, because honestly, that's what every company does. They're adjusting their price points on supply and demand. But if you are really good at your craft and you have the knowledge that brings value, I promise you they'll pay for it. I'm not cheap, but I'm not the most expensive. There are people that charge a whole lot more for what I do. They just have fewer clients. And I'll give you a little bit of math here, and then hopefully this will get us close to the finish line. We actually raise prices on 15 clients on our monthly subscription services. And we raised them all anywhere between 30%, and one of them is 3x what their existing fees. So their renewal tripled. We calculated if 9 of them leave, then we're still going to make more money per month on the 6 that stay. 8 stayed. So we thought we were going to lose 9 clients. We only lost 7. Holy cow, I just raised everybody's prices no less than 30%, and 6 of 15 stayed. Now, what happened to the other ones? We're happy to help whenever you change your mind. And one of them's already come back. So I'm telling you, you are worth so much more than you realize you're worth. And the Great Resignation has eliminated more of us. In the supply and demand curve, the supply is a little lower than it should be. You're needed more than ever. I'm not saying exploit it, just understand it, understand your value, and bring that price point to your marketplace. So I hope this was helpful, guys. Like I said, I trucked on through it. Keep an eye out for later this year as the master classes start up again. And we'll get you more information if you need it. So,
Sean, thanks for sharing your wisdom. I am going to ask you one more question. So all right. So I come into this session. I'm on board with what you say because it makes sense to me. But the one thing that's going through my head or ringing through my head is this is going to take me so much time. How could I possibly do it? What's your recommendation?
You're not going to have it happen today. It's not going to happen like that. This is a process. It took me 7-8 years to build this model. My goal is you start thinking, how can I help you bring this down to 3-ish years? So don't assume it happens immediately. Set your first work on the business day. Walk through these steps. Your next 3, 4, 5 months is understanding you're not rolling out a new business model in 2 months. Give yourself the bandwidth to make this happen. Now, if you're aggressive like me and you want to get after it, by all means, get after it. Give yourself grace. Decide what sliver you're going to dip your toe into and then go from there. But that's why if you go through this process, and this is a methodology I use with me, my clients, other CPAs I've advised, it works. But you have to give yourself that time. And this is where the work on the business day is so critical. Give yourself that day. Don't answer the phone. Don't answer emails. There's not that many accounting emergencies in the world that really, really need you to stop investing in yourself. But it does. It'll take you time, at the fastest 6 months. You've got to give yourself time to do this right. Actually, I'd say the fastest you could do it in a few months, I suppose, because you stop doing everything else. But give yourself grace to build that time up. And if you get overwhelmed, that's what resources are around you for. I mean, that's what we do, is help people out. And you can turn to your peers, you can turn to us, you can look into the upcoming classes, and we're having mastermind groups that are coming up later next year. But it's give yourself the space to figure out your version, and then understand it doesn't happen overnight.
And what was the recommended frequency of the work on the business, Dave?
Minimum quarterly. We are all very, very busy, and I understand that. Minimum quarterly. I would prefer that you give yourself a full day every month. And I know that seems hard. It's easy to cancel. And even I'm guilty of canceling my own meetings with myself. But it is the most important meeting with the most important person that you'll ever have. You are the most important person in this business. Why don't you commit to that person the same way you would commit to your highest paying client? If you do that and you treat it like you are your own client, you're going to find you have a different level of success. So please invest in yourself, guys. I mean, I have a passion for our industry, and I think Dawn said it in the last session, is how miserable CPAs are. Let's not be miserable. Let's be fulfilled. Let's help other people out. Let's make an impact in a way that we actually are creating value, instead of, well, I closed up 90 sets of books. Got to do it again. I don't want you feeling that way. I want you to feel like this is now purpose driven and value added. And that's the whole concept. That's why we started teaching this stuff.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thanks again for taking your time today for teaching. Thank you for everyone who's joining us. I also have to bounce over to the next session, which starts in 2 minutes now. So gotta run. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Y'all can do it.